Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Immersive Labs live demo session. This time on our latest series on infrastructure pen testing. My name is Stefan Apostol, and I'm a senior cybersecurity engineer here at Immersive Labs. So just before we begin, we'd like to go over some housekeeping things. The session is being recorded, and the recording will be available on our YouTube channel, as well as the platform. We've only got 30 minutes today, but I will make sure to leave some time for questions towards the end of the session. You can also type your question as I go through the labs in the questions box in the webinar panel on the right. In case I don't have time to answer them all, I'll make sure to get to you by email after the session. So this session is live, and like many live sessions, it could come down to my broadband speed. So bear with me, and if you accidentally get logged out, just make sure to log back in using the same URL. So just before we begin, I would like to give a short summary of Immersive Labs, what we do, why we do it, and how we create content. So those users who've been with us for longer, you can see how Immersive Labs evolved into what it is today. We no longer only cater for cyber professionals, but our offering is stretching out to cover the entire workforce. The way we build content, whether that would be for the executive team, cyber professionals, or developers, is based on the 3 E's. So equip, exercise, and evidence. Before we go into the actual series, I would like to talk a bit about infrastructure pen testing. We have some topics here, and I would like to touch on all of them. So why do we pen test, first of all? What is pen testing? It's basically looking for security vulnerabilities. We pen test to make sure that our clients don't have any immediate threats in their systems that might result in them getting hacked, losing money, losing time, reputation, so on and so forth. With infrastructure pen testing specifically, we're looking at big scopes. So you'll often be faced with 100 IPs and 5 days, hence the limited time we have here. So yeah, you have to make sure you're really efficient. You take into consideration everything you found. You're thorough with your scanning. There's a lot of information to be reviewed. Out of those 100 IPs, maybe half actually have some services running, but out of those, you'll have a lot of information to review, many open ports, many running services, so on and so forth. There's a lot of research involved because, well, you won't always know what you're looking at. So you'll have to be efficient. You'll have to Google. Google is a really good place to start. You see an open port, you scan it with some scripts, and then you'll have to check how to approach it and make sure you don't break anything, which is most important. But it is a lot of fun. You'll have that hacker feeling you generally see in movies with infrastructure pen testing, because you know, if you get lucky with the service, it will result in a reverse shell. So then you'll be in your client's network, and yeah, then it continues all the way to getting admin in their infrastructure, right? So it's a lot of fun, but it requires, and I can't stress this enough, it requires a lot of research. You'll have to put time and effort into it if you want to do it right, but it will pay off at the end. Introduction to pen testing series. infrastructure pen testing series. Well, it consists of 9 labs. We can't really touch on all services. That will take normally quite a lot of labs. So what we try to do here is be really thorough with network enumeration. So that's the first lab of the series. Then we have 3 showcase labs on service exploitation. So this will look at different ways, a bit of programming, a bit of manual exploitation, and then automatic exploitation using some scripts. Then we're looking again to showcase labs for privilege escalation. Again, when you're facing a remote system and you gain access to a remote system, you should do your own research, make sure you have the correct exploits for that, and escalate your privileges. But in this one, we're going to look at SUID and cron jobs. And then some pivoting, different ways to do that, using SSH, using Metasploit, and then a step-by-step guide to your first pentest. So we'll be combining some of the techniques learned in the previous labs to complete our first pentest, exploit our target, escalate our privileges, and get the tokens. And then the series ends with the demonstrate lab. So the first few episodes is what we used to equip our users with the foundations of pen testing, and then with the demonstrate lab they can exercise their knowledge and execute a pen test in a secure sandbox environment. Also, managers or team leaders can then see the evidence of those skills using insights and reporting. Now, this series is meant at beginners, but if you're already a pen tester, you can just complete the demonstrate lab and get your badge. This is essentially the main difference between what we call a skill path and series. Skill paths will have that demonstrate lab and focus on a specific goal, like in this case, complete a pen test. Series, on the other hand, will be theme-oriented, like our recently uplifted Linux command line series, which I highly recommend. Oh, we have a question. Very huge log is retrieved. What is the best way to find out and pinpoint of the vulnerability while testing? This is quite a broad question. I'm not sure what you mean, so maybe you can just rephrase that. So yeah, that's a bit about Immersive Labs and how we do things here. I will now go into the platform and do a demo of our first pen test. So I will just exit this. So for those of you who don't know it, this is our platform. Now bear in mind the series I'm about to show is for paying customers only. So please contact Immersive Labs if you don't have a license. So to get the series, we go in offensive and infrastructure pen testing. So these are the labs we'll be looking at in the series. So I have network enumeration, as I mentioned. Then the second lab is Java remote method invocation for pen testers. This is just a protocol for distributed systems. It's quite used in internal networks, and it gives us the possibility to do something that requires a bit of programming. Then the FTP bounce exploit, this is going to be manual. A bit of SNMP with some automated tools to get information from the service. As I mentioned, SUID bits and cron jobs for privilege escalation, pivoting, your first pen test, which we're about to do, and demonstrate your skills, infrastructure pen testing, which is basically just a harder version of your first pen test. It will require more research. It will require a bit more. Sorry about that. it will require just a bit more of your skills. So let's go ahead and click on this. These are the learning outcomes. Basically, this panel will tell you what you're getting out of this lab and what's involved, what prerequisites you need, and then just some micro attacks on what's in this lab. So let's go ahead and start the lab. These are the panels we're dealing with. So the clipboard is meant to paste thing inside the lab. Then the tasks panel, which give us a step-by-step of what we're meant to do in the lab and the place where we submit tokens. The network panel gives us the Kali, which we're currently running under, and the target, which we're about to attack. And then the info panel, which is where all the info we need sits. So your first pen test, let's get into it. We're supposed to start with remote enumeration, so we don't know anything about our target. So we're gonna go ahead and scan this using quick scan. Again, the network enumeration lab will give more information on these commands, so you should definitely do that. They should be quite fast. And we can see that port 80 is open. Now, of course, this is web, but web is still part of infrastructure. So since we have nothing else, we're gonna go for it. Now, since we have port 80 open, let's do a more targeted scan. This will use some default scripts and give us a bit more information about what we're dealing with. Shouldn't take long either because it's an internal infrastructure. And we can see that it's running Apache. Now, this is good information to have a bit later, but for now, really service interaction. Always do your research. In this case, is web, so it's a bit easier. But when you're facing any sort of new service, you should understand how to interact with it and you know what the details of that service are. So let's go ahead and visit that IP. So nothing much. It's a simple web page. We can see that stats can be seen here, and again, nothing much. Just server status up, which is obvious because we visited that web page. But what's more interesting is that it's using CGI scripts. With a lot of pen tests, you will get this feel of what's important and what's not. For this one specifically, the info panel is telling us that this is quite interesting. So what do we know now? We know that we found the web server running Apache, and it's got the CGI module running. So really, let's go ahead and search on Google Apache CGI exploit. And we can see that if we go to just this one, you can already see that it's giving us Shellshock. This is rather old vulnerability, but you'll be amazed at how common it is in internal infrastructures. For various reasons, people don't update, people don't allow their people don't put their servers in the correct inventories. So for Shellshock, luckily, Nmap has verify script. So let's go ahead and try that. This is, again, this sort of scanning is part of the network enumeration lab. So right now I'm just going to use a script to check whether or not our target is vulnerable to Shellshock. So it came back quite fast. We can see it's vulnerable. Again, luckily for us, we have Metasploit to help, which has an exploitation script. Again, if you have any questions while I'm doing this, please let me know in the questions panel, and I will stop to explain. This question panel is a bit. How long does it take to complete? Are there any lessons or self-study? There are a lot of lessons, and there's a lot of coaching in this lab. There will be some self-study involved, as with everything, but the labs take you through a lot of the basics. Okay, I will just continue with this. We can search for Shellshock. And again, here we're basically gonna just combine everything we had till now. So Apache mod CGI, this is the exploit we want. We're gonna go ahead and use this. Show options. As always, we're gonna need our hosts. And we're gonna also need target URI, which is the URI we saw earlier. And we're gonna go ahead and exploit. We're now sending the rest of the payload back because we used the staged interpreter shell and we got access to the system. So now let's go ahead and drop into a shell. And our first task is to get the token in home victim user.txt. Let's see who we are. And we are the victim, so let's go ahead and go to home victim last got user.txt. Now keep in mind that these tokens are random and they're unique for each person. So even though I submit mine and it will work, it won't work for you. You'll still have to do the same steps. Okay, so we got our first part right. Now for privilege escalation, we are talking about a bit of local enumeration here. There are multiple things to look at. So old kernel versions that might have a publicly known exploit. You can have cron jobs, SUIDs. For the purpose of this lab, we simply allowed sudo with no password for a victim. So all you have to do is sudo su, and all of a sudden you are root. So our second task was to escalate our privileges. So let's go ahead and go to /root, see if we find anything. And yes, we do have the root token, txt. And again, we can go ahead, submit this. And we just completed our first pen test. Now keep in mind, as I said earlier, the demonstrate lab will be much harder than this, but all the skills you need to have are in this series. I will go through the questions now because I saw there were a few. Give me a second to recite this. Okay. Access to watch these videos at the there are so the videos can be found on our YouTube channel as well as the platform. Okay, I already answered this. You can only see a beginner and intermediate infra pen testing series. Are there plans for an advanced one? In the future, yes. we are currently working on some stuff, but no spoilers. With increasingly active network monitoring defense, do you advise initially trying to be covered when enumerating a network? And are there any labs to demonstrate this? So related to covert operations, those are more for red teaming, so to speak. With infrastructure pen testing, you will discuss with your client. Generally, they will give you more access than other external attackers would have, just to make sure, because in pen testing we're mostly assessing systems rather than networks. It depends, of course, on the engagement, but generally you will have more access than other people trying to attack those systems. In case you don't relate it to covert operations, if your client is interested in testing their defenses, yes, you should be careful with your scans. Yeah, that's it. If you have any further questions on this, please let me know. Yeah, we are. Our tokens are dynamic. They're none of the new labs have static tokens, so of course you won't be able to use the same tokens. As I said, in the lab, you'll still have to complete it. Sorry about the terminal window. It's a bit late now. Regarding to the history of the commands I run, because the terminal wasn't that big, everything I went through is in the info panel. So the info panel will take you through all the steps. So there's no need to go through those again. Yes, Nmap has scripts. It has, as you saw for Shellshock, we scanned it specifically for that vulnerability, but it has some exploitation scripts also. So for example, you can use Nmap for the Heartbleed exploit to get some data. Just one example. How to know if it is a decoy or honeypot? You need to have seen multiple servers, I guess, to realize you're attacking a decoy. Yeah, regarding the SNMP lab, we modified it a bit for the purpose of this series. And yes, it's a separate lab, so you will have to do it again to get your points for that. But if you've already done it, you don't need to complete it, or you can just follow the steps again because you've already done it. The last nmap command, I will type it in here just so you have it. Oh, can't seem to write it in here. Okay, it seems many people want the Shellshock command again, so let's just go ahead and redo that really fast so that people can see. I'll make the terminal bigger. Any pointers on Java Remi lab, please? Not really. Most of the stuff is in the info panels. So if you follow all the steps as described in the info panel, you should be ready to go. How is infrastructure pen testing different from pen testing in general? Because for example, with the web, you focus just on web, you focus on web-specific things. With thick clients, you do a bit of reversing, you check what the binary does. With infrastructure, it's all about efficiency, it's about scanning multiple targets, it's about getting everything as fast as possible because your time is limited. So yeah, also it's about seeing as many exploit showcases as possible. Okay, so the Nmap script people wanted to see, so let's go ahead and look at the info panels. Okay, so it's Nmap SD to make sure we're scanning TCP. Script equals HTTP Shellshock. Script args, like arguments, equals URI CGI bin stats.cgi, and then our IP 10.102.11.66. Let me quickly check if people can see. Okay, so I guess people can see this. So just gonna run it, and that's it. So regarding VMs and hypervisors, those aren't the object of this specific series, so I'm not going to talk about those. Nmap.org for Nmap commands. Also, Google is really good. Stack Overflow has people asking many problems regarding everything. So yeah, just go there. But mostly nmap.org. Will we upload more labs about infrastructure pen testing? For sure, yeah. It's a really broad subject, so of course. Some people have questions about the demonstrate lab. If you go through the SNMP lab, you will find your answer. Just make sure you thoroughly do that. Some good prior labs. Yeah, we do have infrastructure hacking, which is good if you're gonna go into this series. I totally recommend that. So which skills do I think are as necessary for infrastructure pen testing? Just a lot of passion mostly and a lot of research. Of course, if you've done something like computer science and you know some networking, yeah, it will help. But if you're in any area of computer science, I think pen testing is quite okay to start as any background. Just do a lot of research, have fun, and do a lot of the Immersive Labs series. I cannot talk about any programming specific labs. We do have AppSec and a lot of labs in that, but I'm not sure what you mean. Well, our 30 minutes are over, so if there aren't any more questions, we're gonna go ahead and close this. Thank you all for joining, and I hope you're gonna solve this series. So thank you.